morning. Hi, I'm Lee. I'm a New Zealander who lives in the East Riding of Yorkshire, and this is my podcast about my handmade life. I'm on Instagram as Louleigh_, and on Ravelry as Louleigh, and I have an Etsy shop where I sell notions, pouches and knitting needle cases at louleigh.com. And I'm being joined by my charming companion. So I was interrupted. I have an Etsy shop where I sell notions cases and knitting needle cases, and that's at Shop Louleigh on Etsy, but you can find links to all of my online places at louleigh.com. And for some reason my little chum here, whose little pom-pom head you will see, just decides to come and join me whenever I decide to sit here and talk to myself. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of a shop update. I'm getting ready to update my shop at the end of the month, and I'm going to introduce a new interchangeable knitting needle case. Because I haven't been able to do custom cases for the last few months, and so I wanted to introduce an interchangeable knitting needle case that would take larger size tips. So at the moment the current case takes tips from about 3mm up to about definitely 5mm, and I think I've had a 6mm needle in there as well. But that's all detailed in my shop at Shop Louleigh on Etsy. So the new case will be the same dimensions as the old case, but it will have pockets for needles up to 10mm in diameter. So if you have larger needle sizes, there's a case available for you now. And I'm just looking at the new fabrics that arrived this week, which I'm really excited about. I have decided to have a little bee theme. I really like these hives. I think they're so cute. So yeah, I have a coordinating fabric to go with that, and I bought back an old favourite of mine as well. I always like these trees. I think they're really pretty. This sort of, is that a crimson pink? That colour is just so nice. So yeah. And then for notions cases, I got these cats, which I think are just fantastic. So anyway, that's what's coming to the shop this month. This is community news. So the first thing we have happening in the Louleigh Ravelry group at the moment is the Advent mini skein swap. Yes. That's how it goes. We are on to Q3, and I just wanted to remind you that if you want to join up for that, it closes at the end of this month, and then I will pair everybody up again for their swap buddies. So yeah, if you want to join in with that, you can pop over to the Ravelry group and see what it's all about. There's a link in the show notes, and come and join us. We also have the Stashed Appreciating shawl along going in the group at the moment, and it's been so fun to see the different shawls that everybody is knitting and their progress on them. There's quite a few finished things in there now. This CAL is running until the end of August. There will be a prize, and I shall tell you about that later. There's no finished objects thread though. The prize is for just chatting and participating and joining in the CAL. So yeah, I have been knitting the Jodie shawl by Hohi Locatelli for this, and I finished it, and I really like the way that it has come out. I went down a needle size for this shawl, and so it's a lot smaller than it was. I went down a needle size for this shawl, so it came out a lot smaller than the pattern said it would, obviously, but I also didn't actually use up that much yarn. I think in the end I weighed it and it was about 107 grams, and before I blocked it I had wondered if it was a bit small, but I really like the size that this has come out. I think it's still quite wearable. Yeah, so, and kind of a nice shape to wear as well, quite lightweight, so a good trans-seasonal piece. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna gift it to the person that I'd intended to straight away, or if I'll keep it, and the reason for that is because I had a lot of leftovers. I think for this outside colour I only used about 30 grams. So the yarn that I used is way over behind the camera. I'm not sure if I can remember all the colourways. So this was the outer yarn, and I still have about 80 grams of that left. And I think this is the sock yarn in the Salty Tails colourway. And then I had the merino sock yarn from a homespun house. I think that's heart-shaped box. And this one is Eden Cottage Titus, I think it's a silk merino, and the colour is Wild Raspberry. So I have at least 50 grams of each of them still left, and I am very, very tempted to cast on a doodler with these because I really like the way that they work together, and I think that that would be really pretty. Now if I do cast on the doodler, I'm going to give the intended recipient a choice of what shawl she would like, because I think that's quite nice. The person I want to give it to actually gave me this yarn, and there's a bit of a story behind it, so yeah, I think I would have to supplement it with another yarn, and I'm actually looking at one over there that might work, but I'm probably just going to leave it to loiter around on my desk here for a while and have a think about it, because that was how these colours came together. They were just sort of loitering around on my desk, they happened to accumulate together, yeah, and I decided to use them together. So I think I'll leave that yarn that I'm looking at over there and these ones. I might actually wind that into a ball, because you get a better idea of how a yarn is going to look when you do wind it into a ball. Actually there's another one over there that might work as well. Anyway, so I don't think I'm going to cast on, well, maybe I will cast on a doodler immediately. Who knows? I may or may not. You'll see next week. But that's what's going around in the back of my head anyway. I am working on another shawl that had been in my pile of whips for a while. And it is being hosted. And I was watching Fluffy Fibres last night, and I'm not sure if I misheard, but I'm sure Isabel said that her bags were hosting her knitting projects, and I just thought that was so charming. Yeah, so my next project is being hosted in my bag, which is a bag by Jules of So Sweet Violet, and this is so special. She made it especially for me, so of course it's a bit blorange, and she uses the most beautiful fabrics, and it's just really nicely made. So yeah, I really like this bag. Anyway, it is hosting my Sizzle Pop, which is a pattern by Leslie Ann Robinson, and I've done a few rows of this. I've done at least, I think I've done a whole repeat now on this, so I'm getting back into the brioche. Yeah, and it looks all complicated, but actually when you do brioche, on each row you make 2 passes, and so when you're on the front side you would knit across with the main colour, and then you would go back and knit across with the contrast colour, and then you flip it over, and on the back you knit across with the main colour, and then you knit across with the contrast colour. So in my mind this is how it works. In order to get across and back you do 4 passes, and there's only one pass where you do anything complicated. So you do all of the patterning in the first pass across the front side with the main colour, and then on the other 4 passes it's just ribbing, and so it's pretty mindless. And by the time you get to this point you can start to see what the pattern should be anyway. So once you get your head around all the burps and barks and I don't know, bop-offs, then brioche has an interesting terminology. So once you get your head around that, it's actually quite straightforward, and it's very easy to see what you're supposed to be doing. So yeah, I think I've finally arrived at the point with this where I can actually see the matrix, which is great. So I am making this in, the main colour I'm using is Jamieson and Smith, and it is their Shetland Supreme Jump Away, just in the undyed colour. I thought that would be fun because it will go quite nicely with this gradient by Freya Fine Hand Paints. Yeah, so this is a lace weight yarn, a true lace weight, and the Jamieson and Smith is just a slightly bulkier yarn. And I bought this at Loop in London because I really love this orange bit, but I had no idea it was so pink in the middle. That was a real surprise, that it had this really deep pink. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't have, I tend to have a bit of a pink aversion, but I really do like that, so I'm kind of pleased it did have that surprise there. And it's just starting now to blend into the orange. So I think that's going to be super fun. I also like that it's going to have this area where it's going to be really high contrast, and then as it goes along it's going to have this sort of lighter area where it won't be so contrasty, and then another high contrast area at the end. So yeah, it's a little bit like embers. Actually, is that the name of the colour? Is there a colourway name on here? It is Ember. There you go. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that one. This little dog is sat here, and the hairy man is away, and they play together a lot when he's at home. And so I think the fact that he has vanished offshore has discombobulated my little dog. He's not quite as sure of himself. He's a pretty nonchalant little fellow, but the last couple of weeks while the hairy man has been away, he's been a bit more clingy than normal, and joining me on the podcast and watching for cats out the window. So yeah, so he's still sitting there, but he seems to be pretty happy just to sit quite still, so we'll leave him as he is. This is the sewing segment, and if I can reach up here, I have finished my second silk camisole. Actually, I'll start by giving you a close-up of the fabric because I really like it. This is a Liberty Lawn, and it's just so pretty. Yeah. So if you had watched my podcast a few weeks ago, I had made a sort of like a jade green version of this pattern, and if you want to hear about all of the alterations that I made, well, not like there were masses of alterations, but if you want to hear about the changes that I made to the pattern, then you can go back to the episode from the 11th of May 2018, and I talk about this pattern in a lot more detail. But yeah, so I finished this one now. I really like this print, and I'm quite excited to wear it, so I'm really pleased to have that in my wardrobe now. The camisoles that I sort of like, the nice summer sleeveless tops that I had in my wardrobe, were looking a bit kind of worn out and tired, so it's nice to be able to replace those with something that fits well and looks nice. Okay, the dogs have exited. Apparently there's something in the garden they need to go and investigate. They're throwing me off actually. I have stopped and started in several places because of them. So if this is feeling like there's not the same sort of flow as usual, you can blame it on my hounds. So the last thing that I have to talk to you about is my Traister jersey, which is all finished now. Hopefully after I finish recording this bit, I can go down in the garden and prance around a bit and film a little bit of me actually wearing it and insert it here. I think I've talked about this quite a lot. I made it out of Louleigh, yeah, this stuff. I have a few leftovers. I think I made the size large, and I think the main changes that I made were I took the short row shaping out of the back because I didn't think that was incredibly flattering on me. The other thing was that the hip circumference of the finished garment is a little bit bigger than the bust circumference, so it does have waist shaping, but it creates kind of an A-line, and I wanted it to have zero ease at my hips, so I didn't increase as much at the hips as the pattern said that you should. I also decided that I really like the yoke, and I think it's really flattering on me. It looks, my shoulders are quite narrow, and so it makes my shoulders look a lot broader, and you know, creates some emphasis there. But the pattern actually has some colour work around the hem and around the cuffs, and I decided to omit that colour work just because I feel like this was enough for me, and it's really flattering on me, and the extra colour work just seemed like a bit of a distraction. So hopefully while you've been listening to me hammer on about that, I have been prancing about in the garden for you. Yeah. And the pattern is Traister, and it's by Jennifer Steingast, and it's in Louleigh magazine. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say about that one. Like I say, I've talked about it sort of ad nauseum here, so there you go, finishing glory. So that is all from me for today. I think I haven't really decided what my focus for this week is going to be. Definitely I'm going to be working on Sizzle Pop, but I have some other partly finished objects. I'd like to do some sewing, and if I look over here, there's a half finished quilt over there that I could work on. And Buddy is still in the factory. He's just looking at me now, and I'd kind of like to make another toy. So there's a few things that I can be doing this week, and I kind of haven't settled on one or two of them yet, but definitely I'll be making some more progress on Sizzle Pop. Next weekend I am going to Woolfest in Cumbria. I'm going to catch up with a very old and dear friend of mine, so that's going to be really cool. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to podcast before I go or not. So you may or may not see me next week, but if you do see me at Woolfest and you'd like to say g'day, then please do. That would be really good fun. So anyway, it's been lovely to chat with you. I'm sorry about all the interruptions with my animals this week. That's been really distracting. Please come and join us in the Louleigh Ravelry group. It's always nice to meet you there. And if you enjoyed yourself, then please subscribe below and leave me a thumbs up. And I may or may not see you next week, but yeah, cheerio!